Welcome to Inside Startup Investing, the only podcast where you can invest in every guest. On this episode, I will be speaking with the founder and CEO of HEVO, Jeremy McCool. HEVO is a wireless charging technology company designed to fuel up the next generation of electric vehicles. Just like you may have a wireless charging pad for your phone, imagine being able to pull into your garage and your EV car automatically starts charging above a charging pad. That is what HEVO is building. It sounds a bit like science fiction, but this highly technical team has been designing this technology for over 13 years and is currently in development with two of the largest car manufacturers in the world, including Stellantis. For those that don't know, Stellantis has dozens of car brands under its umbrella, including Jeep and Fiat, some of the largest brands in the world. What sold me on HEVO having major potential boils down to the fact that they already have two car manufacturers developing their EV car lineups to incorporate their technology in their next generation of EV vehicles. Car manufacturers do not just engage providers like HEVO unless they really plan to roll out this technology in tens of thousands of their vehicles. Getting to the development phase alone with global car manufacturers positions HEVO for a potential to own the wireless EV charging technology space. A couple of other things that excite me about this company are, first, the founder Jeremy, you can tell, is the epitome of founder market fit. He fell for this space well before anyone cared to pay any attention, back in the mid-2010s, when EV adoption was still incredibly low, and he has persevered through to be ahead of the pack as car manufacturers are looking for someone like him to work with. I also love that HEVO is not just an exceptional technology, but it is also priced to win in the market, beating competitors by many multiples, positioning them to win with large car manufacturers that need a scalable and cost-effective technology. With EVs and autonomous vehicle adoption only increasing over the next decade, HEVO is uniquely positioned to really create and own the EV wireless charging market, and in doing so, create an incredibly valuable company. So with that, let's get on to the show and welcome Jeremy. Jeremy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, how's it going, Chris? Great to be here. Thanks.
I'm doing really well. Well, look, I'm excited to be chatting with you. HEVO is a super interesting company. So let's dive into it. What is HEVO? How did it come about?
Yeah, HEVO is a wireless EV charging company. I started it in 2011. Look, I was in Baghdad leading soldiers in combat, and I came back with this renewed inspiration to do something about it. So it became wireless EV charging. That's the reckoning. But I went to Columbia University, and this is what I studied. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey since 2011. As you can imagine, there weren't that many EVs on the road. So we were trying to solve for a problem before it even existed.
I love that. So 2011, that's almost 14 years, or maybe it's 14 plus.
Yeah.
That is quite the journey. What are some of the challenges and things you've run into along the way? And what about this moment in time makes this the right time?
All kinds of challenges. First, you got to solve for the technology riddle, because wireless charging for electric cars has never existed before. And when people hear wireless, they usually think of something that's only able to do it for phones, or when they think about induction, they think about it through the idea of stovetops. So it is all around us, but nobody has really ever thought about it through, at least at that time, through the lens of charging electric cars. And so we had to find a way to be able to charge over quite a large gap, right? Because your phone lies on a mat. So think of it like this. Wireless charging is effectively like wireless charging for your phone. There's a mat, and then your car, in this case, is pulling over it. It has to align within some, we'll say, within some tolerance. And then it has to start charging and communicate wirelessly. So there's a lot that goes into making that really simple. And then adding in the user experience is, how do you activate the charge? How do you monitor the charge? And what happens is if there's any faults and things of that nature. So we'll start first. We had to overcome the technology hurdle. And we got there And around 2019, 2020, we made a decision that we were ready to take it to certification. We had been building on that for a period of time through the Underwriters Laboratory certification process and getting this technology to even be something that they could certify for, which they didn't have a test ready for that. And so we had to build that with them. And then also with the Society of Automotive Engineers, or SAE, which is responsible for the universal standards for interoperability and charging for not only wireless charging, for plug-in charging, et cetera. They do all the standards that are pretty much known around the world for anything that's universal. So there were these two consortiums that had to agree that we had to work on and create together. And so we got to a point around 2019, 2020, where we were able to take it to both UL and to SAE, and we became the first company in the world to achieve both. So it was around that time then we began to look at, well, we've got a technology that can actually be commercialized. What's the best avenue that we can go down to get this thing into the commercial markets? And obviously up front, everybody always thinks about fleets. So fleets do need wireless charging. And one of the things that people don't recognize, as these fleets are quite quickly adopting electrification and electric vehicles, there's an invisible tax on doing that, which is, it's not just that the vehicles are more expensive. They've never had to deal with anything related to EV and EV charging infrastructure before. And all of a sudden, there's all this upfront cost for EV charging. And then they have to manage it. And there's monitoring, and there's operations and maintenance. And there's this retraining for staff. Or they have to hire charging attendants. And the cost overwhelms them more so than petrol. And it's been a problem for quite some time. So we started to really, even in the very beginning of HEVO, we investigated the commercial point, and it was obvious that these fleets wanted it. But here's the problem. You have to have automakers adopt it. Why? Because an aftermarket retrofit solution potentially voids the warranty on the vehicle's battery. And who wants to take that risk, right? Nobody does. Unless you're a real true gearhead and you really want to have wireless charging on your car. And there are people that are that way, but that's a very small segment of the population. Most people would not want to void the warranty on their cars. So the automaker is the key adopter. They're our beachhead customer. And once we got the certifications in hand, it gave them the confidence that there is at least one company in the world who can meet the rigor of all the challenging requirements in the environments. And I'm pleased to say that we've been able to, at this point, become the reference design for wireless charging for two major automakers that are planning to put wireless charging on up to 7 new electric vehicle platforms starting between 2027 2028 timeframe. And by the end of this decade, we will see wireless charging across multiple platforms, multiple vehicles, multiple companies and brands, period. So it's no longer an if, and the automaker is the key adopter. So we had to go and win automakers. That's not an easy thing to do. By the way, it takes time. It's usually a 4 to 5 year process that they're going through the development of a new electric car or any vehicle in that matter, but to go through the process of developing a new car. So you got to be part of their early design intention and then be a package protected design within. So there's been some work that it's taken to get here. And whoever is joining us now is joining the company in the form of investors or our team members when the time is right, because now we know what the clock is. The automakers have told us we're on a countdown and we're working to that inevitable point pretty soon.
Well, I'll tell you, I saw this deal a few years ago, and I did think it was almost a scam, in fairness to you. Because I was like, that just sounds like science fiction. Sure. Like you're going to charge a whole car wirelessly? That seems crazy. When you sign up these two car manufacturers, and if you don't mind mentioning the names, I know they're on the offering page.
Well, we can do one. One's not on the offering page, but one that's well known is our relationship with Stellantis, because that's in public domain. So we've done press releases with that in the past. But the other one is also a major European automaker as well. And I will tell you that the Asian and American automakers, the legacy automakers, are not far behind. In case you didn't know this, Tesla's in this game. So they went and acquired one of the one of our competitors about 2 years ago in 2023 for a reported $76 million. They were out of Germany, and they only specialized in robotic wireless charging for warehouses. So it wasn't even for electric cars. But that's because Tesla knew that they needed it. They had to have it for all these autonomous vehicles that they're soon going to unleash onto cities all across the world. You can't operationalize an autonomous vehicle fleet without wireless charging. It makes no sense. So those two things go together. And I'm also very pleased to state that yesterday we had a press release and an announcement made with an autonomous technology company called SteerTech, as in driving and steering, SteerTech, that does autonomous parking and alignment for fleet yards. They're very specific for fleets. And so imagine it like this, Chris. A driver does their shift, they deliver their packages, they come back, they drive the vehicle to the gate. They get out at the gate. They don't have to even drive inside the fleet yard now. The vehicle pulls in, parks and aligns itself, and starts charging automatically. It then moves and goes to the bay on its own, gets packed up, and then moves back over to the parking space, charges more so that when the driver comes back, the vehicle's fully charged. If they don't have that being autonomous and have the charging being wireless, there's another person who does that as a shift. So there's added people to this situation, and it's a totally inefficient model, unnecessary to do so. So what we're showcasing to the world here, as far as we know, the first total autonomous and wireless charging compatible system is what the future is. And I just returned from Austin. I was there for quite some time. It's the city of the future. We're seeing autonomy everywhere there and other locations now too.
Just for non-car people, Stellantis is a large company that has several brands under it. Do you mind mentioning some of the brands under it?
Yeah, sure. Dodge, Jeep, Chrysler, Fiat, Peugeot. There's 13 automotive brands that's within that group. It's quite large. It's one of the largest ones. It's number 4 in the world in terms of revenue. They're headquartered technically out of Amsterdam because it's an international company, but truly it's Detroit. It's also Paris, and then it's Italy. And so having the capability to potentially be part of multiple vehicle brands just means that more people will have the intent of having vehicles with wireless charging, and they'll have more options to do so. But we do know that the first run will be likely with commercial related intention. So our collaboration, and I can't go further than that right now, but our collaboration is focusing on the first early adopter likely being a major commercial fleet or multiple major commercial fleets that need wireless charging to really make their operations much more efficient than the way that they're doing it right now, which is that they have charging attendants in these fleet yards just waiting for vehicles to show up just to plug them in. That's not really a great model. So wireless charging immediately eliminates that part.
Getting buy-in from these massive automakers, I know, is not a small feat. And they have to feel very confident in the technical capability, the technology, so on and so forth, to be willing to work with someone. And to become a major provider to a major automaker, again, is not something that's taken lightly. That's what got me excited, because I went, oh my God, you guys have actually proved it. And this is something that's real, because large automakers do not waste their time with things that aren't real. So that's pretty substantial. If you can, I know you can't get into a lot of details, but the conversations you had with those automakers, I know you mentioned that, wireless charging is the future, but what is it about wireless charging technology that excites them, that makes them go, we need this in our cars?
So let me start with this part, because I think that it'll help to make sense of the entire equation. The why wireless is the biggest question that we get. The first thing is that automakers look through the lens of size, weight, performance, and cost, but in the opposite order: cost, performance, weight, and size. And so whenever you're talking with an automaker, they want to know how much it's going to cost them, how much it's going to weigh, because they got to take total weight into account for these vehicles. And then the final thing that they like to know is who else is doing it, because they're also looking for social validation of some sort as well. And so I'm pleased to say that we've been able to overcome the early hurdles of finding early adopters who wanted to have a technological advantage over the other automakers that they compete against. And fine, those might be in somewhat like mid-market or mid-luxury market kind of models to begin with, but that doesn't mean that the lower economy models won't get the wireless charging as well. And that's because price drives everything. And so when we look at our product, we had to position it in a way that it was fully optimized to be a highly flexible solution in terms of the mechanical form and shape that automakers, there is a universal design, by the way, for wireless charging. Thus far, no automaker has followed it. So every time we get an automaker who wants to do something together, the first thing we have to go through is a mechanical design change that's likely going to need to be changed specifically for vehicles that they likely already even have in production. So anyways, the whole point of this is that to state the price has to be very attractive for the automaker. And so our systems are all bidirectional. That means that your vehicle operates potentially as a power wall that can use the battery to charge your home when there's a blackout, a brownout, when you lose power. This is a huge deal. I mean, think about places like, as an example, in California who lose power for 1 to 2 weeks per year. And they have all these electric vehicles. They have a huge concentration of electric cars. And most of those vehicles are not equipped to be able to charge a person's home or to power a person's home. So automatically, all of our technology is bidirectional, one. Number two, it's optimized for price, meaning that it needs to be not only in a size and a weight category, but a price that's got to be in the just low hundreds for, say, an 11 kilowatt bidirectional system. There's no way to model in a wireless charging solution if it's thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars of extra cost to the vehicle. That doesn't make any sense. So our systems at volume, as an example, for our 11 kilowatt system, have been targeted for $250 for a bidirectional system. For a 50 kilowatt system, we're looking at somewhere around $550. And then for a 300 plus kilowatt system on the vehicle side, we're looking at something in the range of about $750. In comparison to the plug-in charging equipment on the vehicle, we're price competitive, if not even the better price solution for the equipment for charging that goes on the vehicle. And so automatically, automakers at least look at this as, okay, we can have a dual option on the vehicle where we're not seeing a massive cost hit to do so. And, the other thing is at some point, some automakers will make a decision to eliminate the plug-in charging. So that's not going to happen immediately, but the promise of wireless charging for the automaker is that they can decontent the vehicle because there's a lot of equipment that's on the vehicle just for plug-in charging and also for people driving the cars. So take an autonomous car as an example. You could theoretically decontent the vehicle for all the plug-in charging harnesses, cabling, wiring, converters, inverters, and everything that goes onto the vehicle. That's at least a few $100s, if not thousands of dollars of savings, depending on what the vehicle has on it. Then you can decontent the vehicle from having steering wheels and pedals and all these other things that are actually very expensive as well. But on the charging infrastructure side, our product is as well priced, if not better priced, than any plug-in charging product out there. So an 11 kilowatt bidirectional system for plug-in charging, prices typically go well over $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Our wireless charging bidirectional system is $1,200. So at-home charging for a few $1,000, you all of a sudden have what is equivalent to having a power wall with your vehicle that could do bidirectionality back to your home with the full software and all the smart interconnectedness and intelligence there. But also on top of that, you've got an 11 kilowatt charger that meets all the standard requirements for safety.
I know when it comes to, charging my phone over here and I use wireless charging, it still has to be against the device, the plate where it's charging, right? I don't get to just put it near it. It has to be on it. When you talk about rolling over a mat, the car isn't actually touching the mat. So one, how does it actually transfer where there's actually space between the actual battery and then where the charging station is? And then the second thing is, What are the inefficiencies that come with that, right? I never get the charging rapidly saying on my phone when I'm using wireless versus when I have the plug-in. So what inefficiencies do exist, if at all?
Yeah, so the way that this technology works is it works like a tuning fork. So if you got two tuning forks that you kind of bump against each other, they start to resonate with each other. So you can think of it in that type of way. Now, one thing to note is that there's a specific frequency for wireless EV charging that was globally adopted several years ago. And so it's been a standard that was also presented and approved by all the regulating agencies that had to do so as well. And that frequency, very specifically, is 85 kilohertz. So all technology for wireless charging has a universal standard, unlike plug-in charging already from the get-go. Plug-in charging, there's like 7+ different connector types, and that's a problem. Imagine if you had to go to a petrol station and you pull up to a gas pump, and one gas pump has one type of nozzle and the other one has a different type of nozzle, and you're always trying to figure out which gas stations have the right kind of nozzle for you. That's what you live through with all these different kinds of plug-in charging connector types. So with wireless charging, the first thing up front is that it's a universal standard. Number two is that because of this frequency at 85 kilohertz, it allows for us to be able to charge over a distance of up to 12 inches and retain what we would consider a very high efficiency. So plug-in charging will range from anywhere from high 80% from grid to battery, so from the outlet to the battery, if you will range anywhere from the high 80 percentile of efficiency for that entire chain to mid, even high 90s. If you want to get to the high 90s, you're going to have to liquid cool the cabling, which costs more money and therefore is actually less efficient. So with wireless charging, especially I could state from HEVO, all of our systems are designed to always seek the highest efficiency that it can whenever it's going through a charging protocol. And so you'll typically see in the low 90s to mid 90 percentile of charging from grid to load. So we're in the same profile. And that's been third-party vetted and has already been tested multiple times in third-party laboratories with major automakers, and some of the other work that we've had to do to achieve these kinds of efficiencies is related to our IP, of course.
What does the development process look like with someone like Stellantis? Do you get paid along the way in the development process, before you're actually going to enter a fleet?
We don't do this for free. So we get paid pretty well to go do the development work, the initial development work, which is typically taking our existing reference design device that we have it's a certified system, so it matches with all the universal requirements for sizing and weight and all these things. But then again, we take that's usually the first device that they receive, and there might be some new configuration or something that we have to take into account, but it gives them the opportunity to first see it, because with wireless charging, seeing is believing. So then that gives them also the opportunity to test it, to validate it, and by the time they get to that point, we're probably somewhere between 6 to 12 months into the program. And what usually comes out of that is that they have selected HEVO as their exclusive developer amongst what is not very many competitors now in the world. There's only a few left. And the answer to that is then HEVO, as we're going through that process, usually gets, at least so far, gets selected as the reference design technology for their new electric vehicle platforms. That doesn't automatically mean that we have the production contract and the purchase order, but it does mean that we have a pole position in winning that. So the next stage of it is to then actually get a production contract that has an attached purchase order or a purchase intent order with it. And we finalize the designs specifically for the new vehicle platforms and get to a design freeze and start producing units at a very low volume rate that meet that very specific design. And you can imagine how the automaker side of this is too. Automakers do not, for the most part, design, produce most of the equipment and the parts that go into the cars. They're all third-party designed and produced to meet their requirements and their specs by suppliers like HEVO. So everything on the vehicle, whether it's the battery, the steering wheel, the brakes, the tires, the rims, all those things, everything comes from some other third party usually. And so with wireless charging, we're one of, say, up to 3,000 components and parts that are on the car that they're homologating together to make sure that they all work together. So to bring this point home, then we go through a process of making sure that the quality of the build is there. It meets the requirements for the production line. Usually automakers are producing at a rate of 1 vehicle per a minute. So all 3,000 parts or so are being all of a sudden assembled and going down a line where vehicles are pumping at the end of the line, fully tested, fully built at a rate of 1 vehicle per minute. So our system can only take microseconds to attach to that vehicle, basically, right? And so as it goes through, we get to a point where they are satisfied, and then high volume production begins, and we're shipping units on a per week basis to their volume requirements.
When you think about the ramp that has to occur, right? It sounds like it's almost a few years of kind of the development phase before you really get into production. And it sounds like you're thinking fleet first, and then eventually maybe the consumer application going into vehicles. So when you think about kind of ramping up to like full scale with an organization, what does that look like? Is that 10 years? Is that 15 years?
No, it's pretty quick actually. So we have this really weird curve, which is that it's flat at nothing, and then it just spikes to 50,000, 100,000 plus units in year one. To your point, to the question, I should say, yes, over the next 2 years and some change, it's predominantly development work. You know, call it a few 100,000 to a low million or so of NRE, with some pilot programs and things that will happen that will also be paid for as well. HEVO doesn't give away anything for free. But as we're getting prepared for production, the ramp goes, you did 10 units, 15 units, 20 units the year before in pilot programs, and now you're doing 50,000 units plus for this automaker, and you're doing 30,000 units plus per year for that automaker, and they've shown us what their volume. So our model is a bottom-up model. We don't showcase and forecast numbers that haven't been given to us by the automaker based on their timing. So all of our financials speak specifically to that. And what we do see is, you're right, Chris, the very first start of this is we do see some fleets being early adopters, but also the consumer or the retail driver, if you will, they absolutely want the wireless charging. I don't have to pitch it to them. When I say we make wireless EV charging to anybody that drives electric, 9 times out of 10, they want it immediately, and they want to know if they can get it as a retrofit to their vehicle. And I have to tell them the sad story that we can't do retrofits because of this, and so you're going to have to get a new car with it. And then, their next answer is, okay, good. That's what I'll do. So what we do know is that in the process of this, we'll go from a few thousand units of early commercial fleet orders. That will ramp up quite quickly on its own. But from the consumer retail driver side of it, year one for one of these automakers is going to be like 30,000 units starting year one. For the other automakers, it's like 50,000 units starting year one. And the other automakers that we're engaged with have been ranged from anywhere from 20,000 units to over 100,000 units starting year one. So it's a bit of a journey. When investors invest into this, you're investing in a situation that's unique, because it goes from, very minimal revenue to all of a sudden 100 million in revenue, 200 million in revenue per year out the gate. And that's the uniqueness of this.
It's a really good problem to have, but that all of a sudden it all comes online, right? The manufacturing headaches, the challenges there. What type of investment is needed to prep for that launch? And what does it even look like?
Yeah. So the first part of this is the company doesn't need to raise a ton of cash to get to production. Our target is to get to about 30 million over the course of the next 3 years. Right now, we're only focused on raising the first 5 million of that with the Reg CF that we're currently doing for the Series A2. And that's being done at a 60 million pre-money valuation. And it puts us at post-money 65 million. And the price per share is 1.9991, so basically $2 per share. And frankly, we're the best priced EV charging option on the table in the world. There's nothing else that is even close to in comparison of it when you look at the performance technology. I'm not talking about just wireless. I'm talking about plug-in charging included into that. Because the upside of this is that We have a profitable model day one. When we start shipping units to automakers, we're not waiting to reach profitability. We have 20 to 30% margin on our hardware, and then our software is 50 to 70%, which, by the way, the software is a combination of both automaker and retail customer side, so end user. But still, we're not sitting and waiting for years or a decade or something like that, waiting to get to profitability. We start shipping for volume, we're profitable day one. So to kind of get to this point, the answer is that we will have to have tooling, and obviously we'll have to have people on staff to do the production. We are looking at contract manufacturers who we have engaged with for quite some time. Major ones like Flex and Jabil and these kinds of companies to do the contract manufacturing, at least at the beginning. And then the other part of this is that they will finance the tooling. They will finance the COGS and the labor arbitraging that has to be done. So that's not having to hit our balance sheet. And the final part of that is that when you have an automaker production contract in hand, it's really easy to negotiate 0% interest with these kinds of contract manufacturers, because that's what they will typically do with that kind of level of investment grade kind of production contract.
In terms of winning contracts with other major car manufacturers, to me, it feels like one of the largest potential hindrances, right, to your size is just how many large automakers can you win? How do you make sure you win more automakers? And how do you prevent any sort of like exclusivity or things like that being required?
So we definitely want to occupy the top right quadrant at all times in this space. We think we can quite literally corner the market, and it'd be us and Tesla. If you think of the world like this, Chris, it's divide wireless charging into two companies, if you will. Tesla operates its own vertical stack. They have everything integrated, so it's a nice Tesla infused system, totally integrated, right? But like Apple, that only represents 13% of the global market share, versus we want to be the Android open source system that represents 87% of the market share. And so the way that we tackle this problem is, the beauty of our technology is that no matter which automaker we're working with, we're going to see 70 to 90% of the parts be the same. So we don't have to go through this rigmarole of having to have a custom-made product for every single automaker. And to add to that, the majority of work that goes to the automaker is only the box, the package. It has nothing to do with the internal components. So we can quickly turn on another automaker and get them to a design within even weeks, as long as they're working with us closely, that meets their initial specification. And so that means speed wins. And we built a system that's optimized to be able to go out onto every single automaker's platform, whatever that EV platform might be, and meet within a spec and have just minimal customization and tailoring requirements.
For investors who are listening, what's your last pitch to them? Why should they join and invest now?
You live in a wireless world today. I'm communicating to you with Wi-Fi as my internet connection. I'm communicating to you also through internet connection. You're using wireless charging every day in your life, even if you don't even know it. This is the inevitable. And the people that understand it is inevitable will be the ones that win. You have the opportunity to be at the spot where the company's inflection point is within a grasp of 3 to 5 years. Whereas the last 15 years, everybody else that's ridden on that ride has had to go through the roller coaster of getting to this point. So I'm not going to pretend that it's going to be a perfectly planned out smooth ride. That's not even close what I'm trying to state here. But we do know that as Wi-Fi was inevitable for internet, wireless charging will be the same for electric cars.
If you like what you heard on the show today, you can check out why HEVO received a 4.3 out of 5 on our proprietary rating scale, and in an investment from Kingscrowd Capital at kingscrowd.com. You can also invest on WeFunder as of August 2025. And as always, if you liked what you heard on the show today, please like, subscribe, and share our podcast wherever you listen so more investors like you can find us.